I am the most iconic aspect of Italian history. Can you guess what I am? Most people who know me only know me as a painting. In fact, I was created over 500 years ago in the early 16th century. I was painted by the high Renaissance artist Michelangelo, one of the greatest artists of all time. I'm said to be his masterpiece and arguably the most famous artwork in the world. I am, of course, Mona Lisa. But although I'm an Italian masterpiece, I wasn't actually painted in Italy. I was painted in France at the home of a French king. The king's name was Francis I, and he was obsessed with Italy and all things Italian. He had an entire Italian Renaissance-style garden built behind his palace in France. And he hired some of the greatest Italian artists of the day to come to France and paint his portrait. One of those artists was Leonardo da Vinci, who we all know as the painter of the Mona Lisa. When Da Vinci first arrived in France, King Francis was so excited that he brought him straight to his private chamber to meet his wife, the Queen. And supposedly when the Queen saw Da Vinci, she said, "Ah, you are the famous painter from Italy who all the ladies in Florence are in love with." And Da Vinci turned to the king and said, "No, no, your majesty. It is not I who am famous, but it is my hands that are famous." And so the king commissioned Da Vinci to paint the most beautiful woman in the world, the most beautiful woman in his court, his wife, the Queen. But after looking at her for quite some time, Da Vinci said, "Your Majesty, I must tell you that your wife is not the most beautiful woman in the world." And so the king was furious and he threw Da Vinci in his dungeon for saying such a thing. Da Vinci spent several days in the dungeon until the king's anger subsided, and then he was let out and he was allowed to go back to his normal life in France. But before he painted the Queen of France, he had to paint someone even more important, the most important woman in the world. Or at least in the eyes of the French king, the woman who would become the most famous woman in the world, the most famous woman in history, Mona Lisa. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe. Thank you.